Brims still spin even when the car stops.
I understand. Yeah.
Even when it's idling, you know?
Yep. I get it. I understand. On the right. On the right, we have Marcus, Kyle, and Max. On the left, we have Dom, John, and Jeremy Berterioni. I guess, let's see. It looks like Dom has decided to use the restroom. So, we're going to go to the bottom match with Max versus Jeremy. And then we'll get some time.
Get a little bit of this Mardu's Shadow. We've heard so much about it.
We have heard a little bit about Mardu Death Shadow here, and Jeremy has apparently beaten Hogak 5 times this weekend.
He claims this matchup is very good.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I might be a little skeptical, but his results are very good. So there's not much we can say about that other than it seems as though it's true.
He was very excited to talk to Craig Krempels as we were leaving the hall yesterday, talking undefeated against the deck.
I did get to watch one of Jeremy's matches yesterday. The deck performed very well against Eldrazi-tron. Give it that.
Also, 4 path, 2 main deck surgicals, a good clock.
Max McVety, of course, a former Invitational champion. Jeremy with a couple SCD Tour top 8s on the resume. Friend of Colin's, Mullen. And I do remember that Jeremy made the top 8 the same tournament that Colin won in Cincinnati when Colin's destroyed the humans. Yes.
The humans.
A breeding pool into a Glistener Elf via Windswept Teeth is why Max is at 17. Jeremy's going to go to even lower life total as he falls down to 15 via a Thoughtseize.
Was that hand lethal? It's very close to it.
It's pretty close to lethal. There's a couple copies of Mutagenic Growth. There's a Dryad Arbor, a Vines of the Vastwood. He's all in on basically one infect threat is Max. And Jeremy's going to write down the contents of this hand. And he'll select a card here momentarily. Bridgevine Mirrors on the top, Humans Mirror in the middle, Mardu Death Shadow against Infect on the bottom to get round number 10 here from Pittsburgh underway. We're going to head back over to Max now, who lost a copy of Vines of the Vastwood. This is a Noble Hierarch. He doesn't seem sure if he wants to play it, but I think he realizes he may have to.
In fact, very powerful on its own terms, and also another effort by players to exploit some of the perceived vulnerabilities of Bridgevine. Deck doesn't block all that well.
Well, Max is going to fire in here with an attack from Glistener Elf. Exalted Trigger is going to make it 2 Infect. 2 Mutagenic Growth is going to make it 6 Infect. He's doing this while Jeremy's shields are down. He'll play a Dryad Arbor post-combat and pass the turn back, knowing that his creature may die to something like a Fatal Push in the future.
Yeah, no way to protect it, really. Although, you imagine you would have seen Fatal Push the previous turn in lieu of Thoughtseize, but if Jeremy's hand is excellent, he might have led with Thoughtseize over the removal spell.
We will head back over to Jeremy now. He will crack a fetch land. Again, a deck that he is a very big fan of. Some other players playing this deck this week and not having the success that Jeremy has been having, but you can understand why this deck would be fairly good. It obviously does a lot of the things that Death Shadow did well, which is bring the life total down pretty low, and it has a tutor for Death Shadow.
Well, this deck is trying to do it a different way than Infect, which is just Disruption Overload with ways to interact with the graveyard.
There is a Death Shadow. It's just going to be a 1/1 right now.
The major innovation on this list, 3 copies of Dreadhorde Arcanist. There are so many very, very powerful 1-mana spells. The Surgical Extractions, the removal spells, the discard spells. 2 copies of Unearth as well. That's a new one.
And that card's pretty darn good.
It is busted. That one's busted.
Glistener Elf's going to come in again. Exalted Trigger here from the Noble Hierarch. Death Shadow's going to jump in front of it, and Death Shadow's going to lose in combat, as it's simply a 1/1 going up against a 2/2 that has Infect. So we're going to head back Jeremy's way now for his 3rd turn of the game. Three mana here. And it is one of his favorite cards and one of the better cards in the deck here in Ranger Captain of Eos, which will allow him to search for a 1-mana creature. He'll search, of course, for a Death Shadow.
This is kind of what you were hoping for out of Modern Horizons, is taking an archetype that's pretty established in Death Shadow and updating it with a variety of new cards and synergies. Ranger Captain of Eos is a big add here, as is Unearth. Also 4 copies of Silent Clearing.
Yeah, which is a really nice addition.
Right.
Does everything you want this deck to do. Provides 2 colors of mana, makes you lose life, lets you draw a card later in the game.
Yeah, this deck, it doesn't have the blue tools to manage flooding out, so those lands, I think, are a big addition.
It's another Noble Hierarch. And now Glistener Elf's going to be a 3/3 in combat. We'll see a small trade there. And now another Glistener Elf and a passing of the turn. So, back to Jeremy we go. He's doing a nice job of staying alive. He's got 6 Infect right now. Looks like Max's draw steps have not coughed up anything too relevant at this stage of things. There's Surgical Extraction right away. It's going to target Vines of the Vastwood, and Max is going to respond by Vinesing his Glistener Elf, and Jeremy knew that was his last card. So now all the Vines will be removed from the deck. Jeremy's life total getting a little bit lower does not concern him, of course, because he's playing against Infect, and he wants to grow his Death Shadows.
Also, trading your Surgical Extraction in this matchup for a card out of the hand is a major win. Not the easiest thing to do.
And now here's Nile Spellbomb. That'll take care of the graveyards, and Jeremy will draw a card.
Looks like Jeremy has found a Path to Exile 2.
Can't cast that on this turn, of course, because the Glistener Elf has been targeted by Vines, but can certainly do it on Max's turn. Might want to do it in his upkeep. There's a Marsh Flats. I'm going to pass the turn. Looks like he's considering waiting with that path.
Well, the Glistener Elf can't beat the board. And if McVety draws something big like, let's say, Become Immense, you might be able to trade the path for the Infect creature plus the Pump Spell. So no reason to rush.
I think that would be the best of both worlds. Max with plenty of pump spells that he could draw into this spot where he could get kind of wrecked by that path that's in hand. A couple copies of Groundswell, 4 copies of Scale Up. It looks like a lot of Infect players have moved that way. We saw just how good that was yesterday in the hands of Aaron Barrich.
Well, the format has moved into a place that's extremely fast and not a lot of creature removal, and Scale Up seems incredible in that kind of world.
This is Might of Old Croja. That'll be Path to Exile.
And this is how Jeremy gets paid off for the patience there.
Yep. Max will get to dig up a basic, and it will, of course, enter the battlefield tapped. It'll be that basic forest, but that's all that he's got going on right now.
Now, keep in mind that Jeremy still has to be mindful about going on the offense here because of the Dryad Arbor and the Exalted Threads with him at 8.
Mm-hmm.
He can still die to a pump spell off the top if he doesn't have anything going on. He might have to sit here and wait.
Some quick updates here for you on our scoreboard as Dom Harvey does win game number 1 over Marcus Luong. So the Bridgevine mirror goes to the player on the left. However, the Humans mirror goes to Kyle Boggemes, the player on the right, up a game over young Jonathan Hobbs. Here comes Death Shadow. Going to hit for 5 there. So Max is going to fall down to 12. Looks like players are just making sure life totals are correct. Looks like we have a quick life total update here. So it looks like both players are at 8 now. Apologies for the confusion at home. Dryad Arbor is going to come in here with some exalted damage. Now you're kind of walking the tightrope of making Death Shadow angrier.
Yep. Although Jeremy probably without, it doesn't appear that there are any copies of Team Battle Rage in the list. So McVety does have the option of trying to, chump block, hit back, chump block, hit back. Any pump spell he draws wraps the game up.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Jeremy's in a holding pattern here, not liking the way the race is shaping right now.
Be a good time to draw one of those copies of Distortion Strike. That's just a Pendelhaven. And now Max will pass the turn back, knowing that he can't get any work done. So it looks like both players are in a bit of a holding pattern. It looks like Jeremy's going to sacrifice a fetch land. Go a little bit lower. Curious to see what the plan is now. All right, another Ranger Captain of Eos, which means it looks like another Death Shadow on the way. Well, actually, this time it's going to be Giver of Runes. Okay.
Try to set up the one-hit kill here. Give protection from green and just come across for lethal.
Boink you that way. Okay.
So he gets, again, best of both worlds here, where he gets to block this turn. It's pretty safe. Very hard to die from this spot. I suppose, actually, Distortion Strike is just lethal.
Well, you can sacrifice. We'll take a look at Ranger Captain of Eos really quick, because he might just be able to sacrifice the Ranger, right? Your opponent can't cast non-creature spells. So I think he sets up the turn of in your upkeep, sacrifice Ranger Captain of Eos, untap, give my creature pro green, kill you. And if you drew Blighted Agent, you get to play another turn.
And you're just chump blocking.
Yeah. So Ranger Captain of Eos' sacrifice ability playing a huge role in this particular game now. All Max can do is pass the turn back. So, will Jeremy go for the W here by giving us Death Shadow pro green as he falls down to 2 with the Goblet Shrine entering the battlefield untapped. There is the pro green. There's the attack, and that is going to do it. So that's a nice little 1-2 punch there from our Mardu Death Shadow player. Up a game here over Max McVety, who is, of course, playing Infect. So the team on the left of Harvey, Hobbs, and Berterioni are currently leading the match.
And Ranger Captain looked incredible. That was
looked pretty
awesome.
Good that game.
Every part of that was good.
We're going to look at the sideboards here. We'll start with Max McVety, who's got 4 Leyline of the Voids and 4 Tarmogoyfs, along with a bunch of 1-ofs here. In Spell Pierce, Dissenter's Deliverance, Spellskite Dismember, Twisted Image, Grafdigger's Cage, and Viridian Corruptor.
I mean, this is not a whole lot to like here. I guess the one copy of Spellskite isn't the worst. I don't think this is a matchup for Tarmogoyf. I think that's probably more for sort of some of the red matchups. Spell Pierce doesn't seem great when Jeremy's mostly tapping out to the extent that he's tapping out, it's mostly for creatures and not spells. I mean, the one Dismember seems okay, but yeah, this is slim pickings.
On the other side of things here for Jeremy, he's got 4 Lingering Souls, 4 Yixlid Jailer, 3 Plague Engineer, Celestial Purge, a Grim Lavamancer, Shenanigans, and a Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
Yeah, it's not getting any easier here for McVety post board. Lingering Souls, Plague Engineer, and the 1 Grim Lavamancer are all major upgrades here. All of these are problematic cards for McVety, to say nothing of all the removal and discard that Jeremy already has in the main deck.
Well, that gives you an idea what both players are working with here. Early this morning, we do want to transition into the StarCityGames.com weekly sale now. Let you know that you can get some cards on the cheap over at Star City Games every single day, but new sales starting every single Monday. You can get a little cheap Water Market. Do you know what Water Market does?
No, I don't. I imagine it is one of the unsets or... Let me take a look here.
It actually is from Unstable. I didn't know this. Snow-Covered Island, Settle the Wreckage, Riz the Redeemer, we all know. Water Market taps for double colorless to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast spells with watermarks.
Okay.
That's fun. If you're into such things, go to StarCityGames.com/sale for more information. Just bookmark that page because the sale updates every single Monday at 11 a.m. East Coast time.
What are the cards that with watermarks besides the Ravnica cards? Because this card's not great at cranking out gold spells.
That's not.
Help me out. What am I supposed to do?
I'm not the king of watermarks. I don't have all of that information. I'm sorry. I wish I could be a bit more helpful.
Okay.
As usual, if we have time to jump around other matches, we will be doing so, as these players are starting to work on their second games. Looks like both Jeremy and Max have sideboarded in a way that they're happy with, so they'll shuffle up, get ready to roll. We'll have a metagame breakdown coming for you later today. Don't forget about that. A lot of Hogak in the building. A lot of Is It Phoenix in the building, as we typed it up deck list earlier this morning. I did a couple Is It Phoenix deck lists myself.
Did a couple Bridgevines myself.
Yep. There's a lot of that stuff. Not a ton of Mardu Death Shadow in day number 2 of competition, but it certainly looks pretty good there in the hands of Jeremy Berterioni. And apparently humans is still a thing that you can do, as Jonathan Hobbs and Kyle Boggemes are doing it and doing it well with their teams at 8-1. So the format has certainly changed with the addition of Hogak, but also some other cards. Aria of Flame looked very good yesterday, I think.
Yeah. I think the set is getting slept on. I think there's a ton of power for Modern. It's just being crowded out right now by the Bridgevine deck.
Yeah.
I think if and when we see some bans to that deck, you're going to see kind of a second wave of cards out of that deck come out and impact the format.
Maximum on the play here in what looks to be a pretty difficult matchup, playing against a deck that does have discard and cheap removal, and also a pretty quick clock in Death Shadow. So this is not the ideal pairing. Doesn't mean he can't win, but it is a tough spot for him to be in. Max will start things off with a Glistener Elf.
Yeah, very impressive that Jeremy was able to fend off a hand that fast there in game number 1 without having an early removal spell for an infect creature.
Yeah.
Not easy to do.
Waterlogged Grove is the land that Max is using to play that Glistener Elf. A new one, of course, from Modern Horizons, as they brought in the enemy-colored Horizon lands into the format to join Horizon Canopy. This, a land we're all very used to seeing in Godless Shrine from Jeremy. We'll see what he's going to kick things off with here. Discard spell is never a bad place to start. Looks like he might be cycling Street Wraith first. And he is. So down to 15. And a Fatal Push on the main face is going to take clear of Glistener Elf. So we're going to head back over to Max now. He'll draw a card. Another Waterlogged Grove into a Spellskite to give his infect creatures a little bit of protection. Mishra's Bauble will allow Jeremy to take a look at the top card of his deck. And now we'll see if he has interest in fetching it away. It'll be a Sacred Foundry that enters the battlefield tapped, so doesn't look like he'll be shuffling that top card away. And now he will draw that card from the Bauble trigger. Third turn here for McVety. We'll see how the former Invitational champion, that's a clue token here on the SCG Tour, wants to move forward. Of course, defeating our colleague Craig Krempels in the finals a handful of years ago. Is now this.
Had to get that one in.
Yeah. Well,
had to let him know about it.
Here is a Noble Hierarch. Oh, Spellskite. Feeling it.
It's interesting there to make that call. I know it looks free, but when you're playing against Death Shadow, you would have to really believe that dealing regular damage for lethal was a possibility of this game. You don't want to be just assigning random points of damage if you can avoid it. Unless you brought in the Tarmogoyfs.
This is a Ranger Captain of Eos. Looks so good in game number 1. Unsurprisingly going to look good here in game number 2. Time to go get a Death Shadow. You know, this isn't like Goblin Matron searching up a Goblin.
No.
This is a 3/3 with relevant text searching up a Death Shadow.
And he's got a little bit of a toolbox in this deck as well. He's got the 1 copy of Giver Runes in the main and the 1 copy of Grim Lavamancer in the sideboard.
Yep. So you can get a little funky with your deck building. Don't want to go too crazy, but a lot of what Jeremy is up to here with his Mardu Death Shadow deck and the inclusion of Ranger Captain of Eos. Makes a lot of sense. We'll see where we're at in this turn here in just a moment. Looks like something has been paused. Okay. Looks like Max is going to crack his Windswept Heath. He is digging for a certain land. Okay, it's going to go to the Dryad Arbor. All right. So he's thinking regular damage. He'll dismember the Ranger Captain. Okay, so we could actually...
9 points is not that hard to put together. He's got 2 on the table with Exalted plus Dryad Arbor.
Yep. And of course his creature is protected from some sort of random free spell because of the spell skite. So is Max able to get the kill right now? He'll have to deal 11.
Well, he could potentially break it up over multiple turns if he has a Distortion Strike. Because you have cover from removal spells with the spell skite. And if you have a Distortion Strike, you don't care about blockers. So he doesn't necessarily have to have it all rolled up right now.
And he does have a copy of Distortion Strike in hand. He's also got a backup copy of Spellskite, which is not ideal.
All right. McVety's making his move here, or at least part of a move.
Some sort of move. All right, so another Spellskite. Not the most explosive of turns.
Well, he's really well set up for next turn. If he's got any sort of pump effect, should be good for lethal because blocking is not going to be effective. And neither is casting most removal spells. He's also got a redraws here with the Waterlog Grove. So even though he doesn't have it now, he's got multiple looks at it next turn.
Yep.
I wonder if Jeremy here is asking about if he can Ranger Captain to prevent the Distortion Strike from coming off.
It's a good question. And how the rebound trigger works.
It says cast. I assume you can't.
Unearth. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good deal for 1 mana.
Yeah, I didn't really put those. I didn't put those pieces together until right now.
Yeah, Unearth
which is like you can kind of lock your opponent for 2 turns with the with the Ranger Captain's ability. Jeez.
Yeah, Jeremy's main deck needs to be a little bit more committed to playing a longer game because, or having more anti-graveyard cards because he's committed to playing a longer game. But you can see there's some really powerful card advantage engines and synergies lined up in all of this.
Oh, Dreadhorde Arcanist. Okay. I kind of like what's going on with this deck. You can kind of see why he's been able to pick up a lot of wins. Okay. So now, Ranger Captain gets sacrificed in the upkeep. Distortion Strike's not going to do anything, it appears. And it looks like they're going to call a judge to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ranger Captain says your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn, and Distortion Strike says cast on the rebound. So, I mean, I guess there's the question of does it hold over for next turn, or is it just gone forever?
Yeah, it's a timing thing, and if there's a holdover and all that other stuff, so. We shall see as our other matches are playing in this match right now. Again, Kyle Boggemes, Jonathan Hobbs, pardon me. They are working on game 2 as Boggemes is up a game, and then Dominic Harvey is up a game right now over Marcus Luong in the Bridgevine mirror. So the spell's just going to stay in exile. Time to sacrifice that Simic Horizon land. Looking for some pump spells is Max, but all he found was a couple of lands, a basic forest and now a Windswept Heath in the hand.
Because it really starts falling apart next turn. The Arcanist is just going to be getting back either a Fatal Push or a discard spell is appropriate, and but to say nothing of the fact that Jeremy's hand's got 4 or 5 cards in it, going to be hard to sustain this.
Back over to Jeremy now. Looks like he drew another copy of Dreadhorde Arcanist. Coming on in. Target on cheese.
Unearth, and then,
Cheese.
Yeah.
I am into this.
Yep.
Not going to get any damage through, but who cares?
Dreadhorde Arcanist and Unearth played well together on a number of fronts.
They really do. So now a Giver of Runes in hand. There's Death Shadow. Another Death Shadow. Well. Okay, now there's Giver of Runes. Okay, just want to make sure he tapped all his mana, right, which he did. Black, black, white. Good to go. Sacrifice that again.
Yeah, wants to make sure that he doesn't get punked out by Distortion Strike.
Mm-hmm.
The battlefield's so locked up if he can block.
And now Max, all he can do is play Windswept Heath and pass the turn back. So Ranger Captain of Eos has been looking nice in this match. Tutoring up relevant threats, coming back with Unearth, and stopping Max from maybe stealing a game. There's an Arid Mesa. Going to sacrifice that Arid Mesa, will Jeremy. See how low he wants to go. It's going to fall down to 5 as he searches up a Blood Crypt that enters the battlefield untapped. Well, that answers that. We're not messing around.
Fatal Push or whatever.
Yep. Push is going to target Noble Hierarch. Spellskite can redirect it if it wants, but the push is going to clear something out of the way.
Right. And Jeremy's kind of happy either way. If you take care of a Noble Hierarch, it makes it a little bit less likely you get killed by regular damage because he's down the Exalted trigger. If you redirect a Spellskite, well, first of all, the Spellskite could jam up removal spells down the line. Secondly, once you get Max down to having only green blockers, then Giver of Runes plus Death Shadow is legal.
Yep.
So it's kind of a win-win spot.
That's some nice sequencing and play here from Jeremy this game. Catching back up and starting to take over. Here come a couple of blocks. Max is a little bit stuck here, having to throw away a couple of creatures, and then here comes, wow, another Ranger Captain. Which will allow him to search up another Death Shadow, and you have to imagine this Ranger Captain's going to sacrifice on the upkeep again.
Right, again, battlefield locked up.
Yeah.
You can only lose the spells, so keep them off spells.
Scale Up was the draw. Distortion. He's got Scale Up and Distortion Strike in hand. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he's got the whole.
Oh, my gosh.
He's got the whole thing. And now it's the Abyss plus lethal.
Yeah, it's trivial. Wow. Wow. I mean, these Death Shadows are 8/8s.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all lethal.
He's just dead.
Say nothing of the Arcanist. Drew a path, it's going to get the whole thing here.
Can play a path now, and Arcanist can recast the path, too, if he wants to do that. Here's a Faithless Looting. Just to make sure that he's good to go. This is the first time we've seen Faithless Looting in this matchup. Jeremy's only playing 2 for what it's worth. This isn't a Faithless Looting deck per se. Here is Path to Exile. He's going to target Noble Hierarch, and that's going to do it. Jeremy Berterioni is going to win game number 1 and 2 here over Max McVety. Mardu Death Shadow is going to take care of Infect, and Mardu Death Shadow looked pretty darn good in those games.
And like I said at the beginning, that's sort of the dream for Modern Horizons right there. It's power in a deck that's looking to play a bunch of turns. It's a skeleton of a deck that's existed before, but it's radically different because of just 2 or 3 cards that synergize in different ways. Hopefully we can see more of that kind of thing over time. If we get a handful of decks out of Modern Horizons that look like that, that's a big win.
Yep. I agree with you. As now we're going to jump to the Bridgevine mirror between Dom and Marcus. They're a little underway here in game number 3. And it looks like Dom has a Leyline of the Void on the battlefield. For Marcus, it looks like he just has a Insolent Neonate and a Blood Crypt. Blood Crypt was found via Bloodstained Mire. And they'll be given the green light to begin this game once again. Just a moment, but it actually looks like Dom is doing some thinking. All right, here's a Stitcher Supplier. Wismare among those cards. So we head back over to Marcus. See Jeremy starting to team up here with Dom. Marcus coming off of a Grand Prix top 8 in Seattle last weekend. An excellent limited player. And we don't see a ton on the SCG Tour because he lives out in California.
Yeah, Bay Area, right?
Yeah, but he's been hanging out on the East Coast, seeing some friends. Decided to come out to this, his second ever SCG Tour event. Not a bad set of teammates either.
No. I would fly across the country if I had a couple ringers like that.
Yeah, same. Carrion Feeder, Gravecrawler, past the turn.
Yeah, it's really prohibitive here for Luong to try to attack into that Stitcher Supplier if he doesn't have a way to lock out Harvey's graveyard. The Neonate is fine to attack with. It has Menace, but everything else, once they're gone for good, and you give Harvey another mill for 3.
So we're going to go back over to Dom in an advantageous position with the Leyline on the battlefield. Doesn't have a great battlefield of creatures just yet, but he'll search up a basic swamp with the fetch land. And now there's another copy of Stitcher Supplier, maybe the best 1-mana spell in the deck.
Yeah, it has impressed me more than Faithless Looting.
Hogak and Vengevine have been placed into the graveyard.
More bulk rate discard, which the deck's kind of in the market for, and then being a 1-mana creature, very synergistic with Vengevine.
Carrion Feeder means that Vengevine is coming back, and it looks like Hogak's on the way back as well.
Yeah, I think Dom saying to his teammate, I really want to leave the Stitcher Supplier back to block. I don't think Luong can attack as long as that is available to block on the battlefield. So let me tap the other 2.
So, Hogak now on the battlefield. Vengevine coming in. Marcus has no blockers, of course, because Gravecrawler and Carrion Feeder cannot block. So Marcus needs to blow up this Leyline, like, right now.
Well, even if he can blow it up, he's got to be able to get something going and block all at once.
He's got a lot to do.
He's got a lot of work to do.
He'll start by sacrificing Insolent Neonate, discarding Hogak, draw a card, hoping to find something like a Nature's Claim. Another Neonate, and he's just going to concede the game because he knows he is beat. Cannot defeat the ley line, plus the pressure there from Dom Harvey. So the team of Dominic Harvey, Jonathan Hobbs, and Jeremy Berterioni are going to win